Is that gotta be off the record? I'm recording right
Yeah,
now.
for now,
Okay,
that
I'll
has to
cut
be
that
off
from
the
this
record.
then.
Nothing is.
I'll throw it up on the Patreon and I'll
Yeah,
clip it out for everything else. So there
I
you
see
go.
what you
All
Okay.
right, there you go. All right, and otherwise we'll just pretend like from fresh then. I'll say good morning and we'll go. Patreon.com/the Walk Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there. Good morning, Joel. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Adam. How are you?
Good. We got some nice news middle of last
Yeah.
night. Bo
Yes.
Bichette 3-year extension. So we'll talk a lot of that today, I'm sure.
Mhm. That's
Um,
important.
some other talking points that you had brought up. Espinal in the outfield. You know,
Yeah, that's
that sounds like an old Disney movie, Angels in the Outfield. Espinal in the outfield.
that's been all in the outfield.
uh,
Um, yeah,
all right.
that was one of the topics. You wanted
Well,
to slash through all the topics, or you just want to dive
let's
right
just
in that one?
blast through all the topics, and then we'll
Sure.
start with the Bo Bichette stuff. Your idea for the number 9 hitter, the no more closer role, and then if we're really feeling frisky, maybe we'll talk Chat GPT and the future of AI because we got to fill an hour here. I did 15 minutes with Craig because there's no news to talk about, and I got so many complaints that it was only 15 minutes. So we'll see what we can make happen. I mean, I filled the rest of the hour with Danny Jansen, but people were
Yeah,
like, Danny who? We want those yahoos from the walk-off just babbling for an hour. So
that's awesome.
okay, before we talk Bo Bichette, I'll just mention quickly trivia night for the Patreon is back again for February. We did our Major League trivia last Tuesday. It went well. Ian, congratulations on winning. He has a fitted Blue Jays ball cap coming to him. So, although I will say, we got to about question 5 before we realized that you had to click a submit button on the multiple choice, and Ian was the only person who knew that. So,
Oh,
yeah, he was going from his computer and hitting the submit button. And then when we did our score check, like, oh, how's everybody doing after question 5? We're like, oh, Ian's doing great, and everybody else is at 0. So, but everybody was a good sport about it. So, and then Ian
it's the
had a
next
sick kid,
trivia.
so he had to bail about halfway through, anyways. So anyways, congratulations to Ian. It was a fun trivia night. We did Major League, Wild Thing, Charlie Sheen, and all the rest of them. So it was a fun time. We're gonna have a poll up on Patreon right now. So by the time you see this, if you're on our Patreon, go and vote for which movie you want us to cover for this month's trivia night. We're going to have Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, Mr. Baseball, and we're replacing Major League since it's now been done with Moneyball. So one of those 4 choices. Yeah, Joel, I knew I had to announce the Moneyball edition with you on. It's your favorite movie of all time. We all know that. Maybe you can help me write some of the trivia questions.
Yeah, you probably don't want me in on that one. I shouldn't play. It would be
All right.
cheating.
All right, let's get to it. Bo Bichette, 3-year deal. This is big
3-year
news? This
deal.
is non-news? What is this? What's your take on this?
Oh
Because
God.
when I first saw
I
the tweet, it was like, oh, extension. I was like shaking in my seat waiting to click on the news and the details of this, right? Was it 11 years? Was it 15 years? Was it 6 years? What was it going to be? They bought out his
for
arbitration.
yeah for also for the hockey fans out there. Bo Horvat just got signed long term by the Islanders. So I was like 2 days ago, I was like coming on my computer and Bo signed 7-year deal. It just said Bo. Like they can just say the
Oh,
first name right,
man.
right. And I was just jumping. I was just jumping for joy. I click on it. New York. What
Oh,
am I
my
missing here?
gosh. That's
And
dumb.
then now, like 24 hours later, Bo does sign. And I was very hopeful that there was some type of extension involved, right? I was hopeful that there was some sort of maybe a team option for another year or two, or where he's walking away at 29 now instead of 27, something like that, right? I was very hopeful, but
So let's clarify then for anybody who maybe hasn't read the tweets or the headlines or anything like that. This does not push his free agency date back at all. There's no extra team control. It is a 3-year deal. I think Ben Nicholson Smith is reporting sources close to him saying 33.5 million. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. It's
That's
it's security on both ends. I was reading an Andrew Stoughton, friend of the show,
mhm,
uh, subscribe to his Substack. If you don't, it's a good read. He's a good guy. So he brought up some comparable numbers here, and I just want to throw these out, and then we could talk. So Trey Turner,
mhm,
similar situation as a shortstop, was looking for 7.45 million in his 3 years left point of his arbitration. He was a Super 2 guy, so he had 4 years of arb, but or an extra year of arb. Anyways, he went on over the course of his final 3 years of arbitration to make $41.5 million. Whereas a guy like Carlos Correa uh, was at 5 million in arbitration at this point, and then only went on to make 25 because of like injuries and some statistical drop offs based on his injuries and stuff like that. Javi Baez was another comparable, who went from 5.2 million at this point to 10 million the following season, and then 11.65 in his final year because of a huge statistical drop off. So for comparables, we're looking at Carlos Correa, Javi Baez, two guys who were on the upswing but had some setbacks in arbitration, made about 25 million over their final 3 years. Trey Turner was at the similar point, continued that upward trend, around 41 million. So
mhm.
Blue Jays and Bichette kind of meeting in the middle,
Yeah, cut the
right?
difference and
Cut the difference.
s-
So that's where we're at.
30. Yeah, it sounds, when you think about it, at the end of his tenure, at the end of that contract, he'll have been paid 36 million over 6. Right. So like that's pretty good money to be spending for your starting shortstop, who literally since he started playing was your starting shortstop. There was no like, oh, it's 50-50 time. No, as soon as Bo was up, he was our starting shortstop. So
Yep.
that price point's pretty solid. To like dive into the contract and, the devil's advocate in me wants to smash things, but at the same time, I'm gonna say at least it's a step in the right direction for him being here long term. I
Agreed.
feel like I feel like last week, the chances of him staying past 2026 were 30% in that range, 25. You look at the chat and wherever you go, people are like, trade him, get rid of him, get rid of Bo. And I'm so on the opposite side of that fence. To me, I want Bo with this team until he doesn't want to play baseball anymore. So yeah, so I will say that I am happy that we're not going to be dealing with this issue every off season where they're toiling for a month just to get a few $1 million. We're arguing over 2.5 for this
Right.
year, and to do that every single year would just it just does Bo, that doesn't need to be in Bo's head for the next 3 seasons. So I'm glad that they've at least made a step to say, here's a good chunk of money. You deserve it. You've led the league in hits back-to-back years. You're going to get paid well, guaranteed over the next 3 years, no matter what happens to injury. So there's some guarantee there. And then hopefully we put some nice wins together and he feels like this is a place he wants to be for, the foreseeable future. It's my big thing. I want Bo a Blue Jay.
I'm with you there. Like I said, first heard the news, my expectations and my excitement level went to 11.
Mm,
Read the news, I felt deflated.
mm,
Slept on it overnight. Uh, some positive takeaways that I want to share with you and everybody listening, who maybe feel like a little bit discouraged as well, like that it's not a 7 or 8 year or even 5 year deal. Like this doesn't ensure any extra games played in a Blue Jays uniform. We were positive last week, you and I talking about the Chad Green contract with
mhm.
the creative options and how that was an encouraging sign of what this front office was willing to do to make things work. And I think that's another thing that I want to take away from this contract is that both sides were willing to get something done, right? Uh, it also shows me that, I mean, because there's been a lot of speculation for several years now that Bo Bichette is a bet on himself kind of guy, and he is going to
Mhm.
be a maximize his earning potential kind of guy. If that was the case, he left money on the table by signing this extension,
Yeah,
right? We just talked the Trey Turner numbers. That's $41 million. And again, that's a couple years in the past now. So there's a very real possibility if he was going to bet on himself, he could have made 40 to 45 million,
exactly. Yeah,
right? So he is leaving money on the table for some security. That makes me optimistic. If we're going to talk long term deals at any point over the next 3 years, that he isn't just looking to absolutely make every possible dollar. So I am
exactly.
happy by that. That is some very positive news. Also, on the Blue Jays side, this also shows us a team who is already at the luxury tax threshold that they are willing to go over it even further because
Mhm.
the way the cap penalties work is it is based on the AAV of a contract, right? The annual average value. So his cap hit this year, if they just did the arbitration, would have been either 5 or 7, right? Depending on where the arbitrator goes. That's the cap hit for this year. But because they're doing 33/3, the cap hit is then going to be 11 all 3 seasons. So
Yeah.
that's an $11 million cap hit this year as opposed to 5 or 7. So for a team that's already at the luxury tax threshold, willing to go 4 or 5 million more over the tax limit, again, I think is a encouraging sign.
Well, yeah, it's an encouraging sign because it says that when they reach that amount where they got to start paying 20%, 25% on what you're throwing out there, that they're not afraid of that money being spent. Like
Yeah.
you feel like once you got to that limit, is that the barrier that you're going to stop at because you don't want to invest, a buck 20 on every buck that you have to spend. So for them to have the mindset of we're going over and we don't know how far yet, but
hmm
just the fact that we know that we, I probably thought for a while that that was a wall that we would
Yeah, I
hit.
thought so too. I didn't think we were. I thought maybe when we have Bo and Vladdy both signed, we're a
Mhm.
luxury tax team. Like we're like at the limit, and that's our limit. And over the last month, I've seen that that is not a limit for us. And like you said, I
Nope.
don't know where that limit is, but it is not the luxury tax. Whatever that number is, we are willing to go over it, and I'm very encouraged by that.
Yeah, we're about, was it about 15 million over now in that
Yeah,
range?
yeah,
Right. That's so, like I said, coming into this off season, I felt like our financial step up from 21 to 22 was about 35 million in payroll, something around there. I feel like we did something similar that year, this year, coming from 190, 200 now to 230 in that range.
yeah.
So it's like we've taken, like I said, I thought it was a wall that we were going to run into and just stop at this season. And then maybe, like you said, in the future for signing Bo, Vladdy long term, that's where we break through it. But we're doing it right now. And that's, maybe that has a little bit to do with Cohen in New York saying, if you're going to win in this league, you got to spend. That barrier has to be something that you can break through if you want to win a World Series because it, money puts players on the field, and we've got a huge market,
Yeah.
right? We're all of Canada. So to be a team that can say, hey, we're gonna spend like you guys do downstairs, and the fact that our money is Canadian money. So that says something else on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Like we're paying a little bit extra because our money isn't worth what American money is. So the fact that they hit that presumed wall and went right through it is, I'll give Shapiro and Atkins some compliments for that.
Hey, some compliments from Joel from Hey Kami on
I
Shapiro
can go both
Atkins.
ways.
Wow, I'm impressed. Hey, you're
I'm a switch hitter. I swing from both sides.
yeah, you call it like you see it, and I'll give you credit there. Okay, but now Espinal in the outfield. This is an idea you had. We were texting about it last week. Um, you have the floor, Joel. This is your idea. Just explain how you feel about Espinal as a fourth outfielder.
Yeah. So I still, Espinal's an infield. This is not me trying to reclassify it. Santiago Espinal as an outfielder all of a sudden. But last year, if you're familiar, if our audience is familiar with Espinal playing fourth outfield when we did the 4 outfielder shift,
Right.
where we would put 4 outfielders in the outfield, he would
Yeah.
be pulled over way in the right field side. You got outfielders pretty much in your gaps in this position, but he was comfortable playing that spot. Now, what I'm talking about with Espinal is the fact that when it comes to left-handed hitting, he's actually one of our best hitters on the team.
Okay.
Last year, OPS wise, I think it was about 820, 830 against lefties, which is really, really solid. When he's if you so my concept is Santiago Espinal's probably a better player for this team around 350, 400 at bats, used very specifically, as opposed to trying to get him 500, 550 at bats.
Okay.
If you're getting his at bats to be closer to 50-50 righty lefty, then his OPS is going to go up and he's going to be more effective in a shorter period. If you try to get him in as a starter, he gets his weaknesses are sniffed out, and we kind of see him falter a little bit last year in the second half, especially. So I feel like it's a situation where um, Varsho's issue with lefties is pretty big. He hits 550 against lefties, 550, and Espinal is 830. So
Okay. Substantial.
defensively, yeah, defensively in that situation when you're up against the lefty, it can be an interesting little platoon situation where you're putting an infielder in the outfield, but his bat may trump at least Varsho against when he's up against lefties and that 550 OPS that he brings to the table. So it's a situation where it gets a 300-point OPS jump out of a player that is sitting on your bench, right? So it's something, and we don't have a fourth outfielder as of yet, unless I'm
Correct.
missing something that happened this morning. So if we're really adamant about Witt being our second baseman to start the year, Bo's at short, Chapman third, to use this opportunity to get Espinal comfortable in the outfield so that he's already comfortable to go out there last year in a limited sense.
As a
So I feel
rover.
like I feel
For
like
any
you can
slow
expand
pitch
that.
players that are watching, a rover.
Yeah, he was our rover last year. So to expand on that, as a fourth outfielder, if you're having an outfield issue, if Springer's down, the other two can slot so easily to center field. Varsho can slot to center field. I mean, well, they are going to slot to center field because Springer's going to be in the corners. But it's a situation where if Espinal can get comfortable in the outfield, especially when there's a lefty on the mound, he can bring something to the team.
So you're suggesting when a lefty's on the mound, Varsho sits.
If he doesn't improve his 550 OPS, I think so, because I don't want 550 OPS in that lineup against lefties. That is a pitcher coming up to the mound.
Yeah.
That is not, that
It's
is
a
an
hole.
abs. Yeah. And I don't want a spot that is just dead in the lineup.
I'm with you there. I do think that because he's one of the shiny new toys, he's going to get a long leash to figure that OPS out. Like I do think with the banning of the shift and the new ballpark that he's playing in and all these factors, I do think that even like a slow start in April, we're not gonna, as a team, I don't think we're gonna pull the plug and be like, yeah, he still can't hit lefties. But it is maybe a more long term consideration.
It's
And
kind of what we were doing last year at the beginning of the year when they were making platoon shifts in game. I don't know
mhm.
if you remember that, but like Cavan would be up. They would start him at second. A lefty would come in the fifth. Espinal would come in, finish off the game.
Yeah.
And it was kind of that idea of like Varsho can play 7 innings of a game, but if they bring in the lefty reliever to face him in the eighth,
Mhm.
that's an ideal spot to switch him out for Espinal, take 2 innings of his outfielding ability in sacrifice for, an attempt to win it, a jump at 300 OPS against a left-handed pitcher. So it's
Yeah, I like that.
situational, right?
I like it. I also, again, I don't want to see it right from April, but if we're talking like by the summer, if Varsho's numbers against lefties haven't improved, I'm also fine with like Espinal starting the game if it's a lefty on the mound.
Mhm.
potentially, right? And then having,
Absolutely.
okay, lefty's out of the game in the sixth inning. Now we bring in Varsho.
Exactly, and you switch it right back, right? It's
So,
not it's not so much of a platoon as it is an entire game platooning, but
mhm.
situationally willing to, if you're losing and you need a run, make that swap, which is, and you don't have to. We were just sitting there, and I think we've talked about Andrew McCutcheon and wanting him to be our fourth outfielder and what he
Mhm.
brings as a righty swing against lefty bats and kind
Yep.
of having a platoon there. But internally, we do have a guy who swings pretty good against lefties. So, and he is good defensively, at least on the infield. So hopefully some of that can transition. And like you said, situationally down the road, like you said, I want Varsho to have a long leash to start, but come June or July, he's struggling against lefties. There's an in-house switch that you can make just to give you a little bit more of an edge.
I like it. Options. We know this team is a big fan of options. So who knows? Maybe they have some creative solutions up their sleeve like that. And we'll see how it plays out. Okay, let's talk number 9 hitter because this has been a gripe of yours as long as we've been friends,
Yes,
Joel. Uh,
absolutely.
Having the number 9 spot rather than throwing your pitcher out there. That's a dated reference, but
Mm,
have it being a pseudo leadoff hitter,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
A leadoff hitter that gets one less at bat, but
Mhm.
uh, being able to turn the lineup over, getting guys on base. Break it down for me.
So if the team had a classic leadoff hitter, if we had somebody like an old school leadoff hitter who hit high on base, good running, no home runs, no pop, but just a Kenny Lofton style leadoff hitter, it wouldn't mean that much to me. But since we go with the Springer approach at the top of the lineup, I don't know how many texts you got from me last year when I was angry on a George Springer solo homer with nobody on base,
I
and
got
it
about
not just
15
being,
of them.
yeah, not just the fact that it was like leading off the game, but the fact that out of the 9 spot, it was Tapia, Zimmer, Jackie Bradley Jr., right?
Yeah.
Like it was an absolute hole in the 9 spot. So he was hitting solo home runs later in the game because nobody was on for him. Nobody was ever on.
Yeah.
And my concept has been as Springer's OBP starts to slip a little bit year by year, that he's becoming more of a number 4 hitter, right?
Okay.
He had 25 home runs last year, 70 or so RBIs. You put him in the 4 spot and maybe 3 or 4, he scores 3 or 4 less runs, but he probably has 10 more RBIs, maybe more. But it was a situation where we've got that absolute stud hitting number 1 with power. The ability to not only get on and set the table, but to drive in people if they're on base. And if we're coming into the situation this year where Kiermaier is in the 9 spot, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. If we have somebody else in the leadoff spot and Springer's shifted down to kind of extend the lineup, then I don't mind if our number 9 hitter's back. But the fact that we're so 1, 2, 3, 4 heavy in the lineup, and we have been for a considerable amount of time now, that we don't consider 9 to be a part of that 1, 2, 3, 4. It's directly connected.
Hmm.
Every time you shift over the lineup, every time you get a hit in that number 9 spot, it gives that top of the lineup an extra opportunity to, score more runs. It just, the way that we're set up, it makes sense that that 9 spot is assisting 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Witt is ideally designed for that spot
Okay.
because of his doubles. If Witt's healthy, if Witt's producing to the standard of Whit Merrifield, he's hitting with a 270, 280 average at the bottom of the lineup, and he's got 40 double potential, and he can steal. So if that guy's hitting 9 for you, he's pretty much setting the table in that 9 spot. 2 outs, Witt gets a double and gives George a chance to drive him in. Like we need that can add so much more to the team as opposed to Jackie Bradley Jr. strikes out. Bradley Zimmer has a buck 20 batting average. Raimel Tapia, all that in the 9 spot. It's just there's no connection. There's no flow from 9 to 1. So I say put a good hitter there.
I like it. It would solve the pit in my stomach that I sometimes feel when an inning ends at number 5 or 6, and I just go, well, 2 innings from now, we'll have another chance to score.
Right? Right?
Yeah. Okay, now's a good time to go make some dinner because we got about an inning and a half before anything happens.
You watch another show for 20 minutes, you're like, and your girlfriend is like, "Wait, what are you doing?" And you're like, They're not gonna be good for about 25 minutes. We can watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something."
Yeah, let's throw on an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. All right. While we're on the topic of unconventional lineup construction, let's talk the closer role.
Yes.
Jordan Romano is the de facto closer of this team. Very impressive numbers last year. I think we can agree on that. Top 5 closer last year,
Oh, yeah, I would think so,
right?
especially in the AL.
Okay. Um, you have a suggestion which would drastically impact his save count.
Yes, oh, yeah,
So let's
absolutely.
let's talk this. Let's talk Jordan Romano out of the closer role.
I think nobody in the closer role would be the best way of
Okay.
saying it. To me, it's not taking away that mantle from Romano. It's the idea of approaching, especially like the last 2 innings, the last 3 innings when you've gone to your bullpen, approaching them based on the lineup that you're facing as opposed to it being 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning. If your best pitcher, we've come the end of this year going into next year, we will ideally have 3 dynamic arms able to come out of the pen. Now, judging on whether one is high or low or where they are compared to each other in the season, it just gives you the opportunity to say, we're going up in the 8th inning, we're up against 2, 3, 4 of the innings. Now, do you want your best arm to be in the game there? Or do you want your best arm to be in the game in the 9th against 7, 8, 9 potential? Right. My concept is just get rid of the idea of saves being a thing that matters. It's about putting out the most effective guy against the hitters, dependent on who they are. Right. The idea of sending out a slightly less good guy in the 8th, just because it's the 8th, but it's the core of their lineup, still just doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of teams have kind of made that shift over the last few years to, if Josh Hader has to come in early, he'll come in early. And kind of that concept of facing the core guys with your best arm.
So this would be a bigger factor, I suppose, if there was an exaggerated drop off between Jordan Romano and what he's doing this year and Eric Swanson or a Chad Green when he's healthy or
Yeah.
whoever the case may be. So I'm with you there. If there is not a substantial drop off, do you still feel the same way?
If there's not
Like if
my
Eric,
situation,
let's eliminate Chad Green because obviously he's coming back from Tommy John. It's a very much a mystery bag what we're getting with him this year. So let's take that
yes.
off the table. But let's say Eric Swanson dealing this year,
Yeah.
absolutely lights out. Jordan Romano also lights out. They got a WHIP right around 1, an ERA under 2. They're both like as good as we could ask for. How do you still want to lean on one when it's Aaron Judge coming up in the 8th?
I feel like it's situational. It's what those guys experience are against the hitters that they're facing. Um, but it'll come down to, like, those guys are, it's a 1-1A situation, right? It's, if Swanson's dealing the same way Romano is, which they both were last year, if you take their stats and carry them over to this year, it's very much 1A, 1B. They're,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of a goalie situation, playing your hot hand within the season. If you feel like a guy is on a stretch of 10 innings without giving up any runs and he's hasn't walked a guy in 10 innings, it's to me, it's about playing the hot hand of who feels right energy wise, also who's pitched recently. It's a situation where you don't have to feel locked to their inning because, oh, Romano only pitches in the 9th. I know Romano loves being the closer too. So that's a tough thing that I deal with because he's got his big entrance. He loves to come in the ninth. He loves to be that ninth inning guy. But if
Let
you have the
me
ability to especially when Chad comes in, that's at the end of the year. This is more
Mhm.
so in my mindset come August, September, when you've got a three-headed dragon and you've got numbers to say, especially with Chad Green, who has so much experience. So you look at his numbers against specific batters in Major League Baseball, and you go, "Well, Chad's dominant against these guys. Maybe he gets the eighth because it's 2, 3, and 4, and he's more successful against that 2, 3, and 4 than Romano is." But it's like I said, playing the hot hand of who's you see Romano can be dynamite at the end of the year, but he can have his roller coaster moments throughout the season, right? So it's just the fact that your potential roller coaster, you've got another arm. And if you feel that you trust that other arm in that moment, you have the option. And like we said, Jays love options.
I don't know how I feel about this. I, on the one hand, like the old romantic baseball fan in me, loves the idea of a closer.
Mhm.
You know, your Wild Thing, your Edwin Diaz, your Markham Madman. I want so, and I love that he's like Canadian, Toronto area kid, grew up a Jays fan, closing out Jays games. I love everything about like just from like the romance of baseball of it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
From a entertainment side of things, as a fan being at the Rogers Center, the big entrance, and you know it's the ninth and whatever. That's really cool too. Like there is a intangible value add to that.
Mhm.
And I want so badly for Jordan Romano to be an elite closer. I'm just not sure that he is. He's really, really good.
He's really, really good.
I'm just not sure that he's elite.
Yeah.
So that makes me kind of lukewarm on this whole topic. And I hate that because, like I said, I want so badly to be like, we have the guy. Again,
It's
he
also,
was a
isn't
top
it
five
kind of
closer in
a,
the league last year. So, like,
yeah.
I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
even say, like,
I'm a
anything
huge
bad about
Romano
Jordan.
fan.
Love
No,
Romano.
and this idea doesn't apply to last year. I don't think this idea applies. I think last year Romano's your
It
closer.
was
He
a
comes
different
out in the ninth. Yeah,
bullpen last year. Totally. I
right.
get it.
That idea doesn't apply there, but now it's it's
No,
weird where you would get
I
that.
think last year would apply more than this year.
You think
I
so?
I think last year we don't. I think the drop
Or
off between
you would use Romano more
in the
in the
eighth
eighth is what you're
last
saying, and
year.
let
Yeah,
and
I feel like the drop off from Romano to Mesa or Trent Richards is more
or Yimi
substantial.
Garcia. Yeah,
Yeah, so if we're going against Aaron Judge in the eighth and Giancarlo Stanton in the eighth, yeah, I'd rather have Romano get the ball there and then have Tim Mesa come in to face Gleyber Torres and whoever else in the ninth, right?
it's kind of just the idea that you've got more closers. You're technically bringing in a closer in the eighth, right? Which is the
Right.
difference between last season is that there is a drop off, right? So when you go to that, it's almost like you've got more closer bullets in your gun and you can pull the trigger earlier because you know Swanson or Green can take the ninth, right?
You've
Or
lost me. I'm off. I'm off this bandwagon. I think just the
really,
fact that we're so close. Yeah, I was so close to with you, and there's the more I think about it, because there's less of a drop off. I don't see the value in bringing in if Romano's gonna. I see the romantic entertainment value of having a closer. I mean,
Mhm.
bonus points that he's Canadian, everything we just talked about. But I don't see him being that much better than Eric Swanson, where in the eighth inning, we're like, oh, Aaron Judge is up. We better bring in Jordan Romano so that we make sure we get this here. Like, I
I'm
trust
kind of
Eric Swanson almost just as much as Jordan Romano to take care of business.
yeah, yeah. So what I'm saying is that it's remember Kansas City and their three-headed dragon in 2015, right? That option of they would run 3 closers out there, situationally based on who they felt was gonna dominate those last 7 innings. So to me, it's just a situation where we don't have to feel so locked to that ninth. We don't have to feel so locked to our roles. And and to me, if you would have used Romano in those situations last year, right in the eighth, where you bring him in and then you lose it because you don't have a closer coming in the ninth, and the weaker hitters get to him. To me, that's like
That's a good
those
point.
that would be incredibly deflating,
All right, I'm
right?
back on board. You've sold me.
Yeah, we go back and forth.
We
I
did a
love it.
full 360. Okay, no, that was great. That's a great point at the end there. Okay, I'm with you. That's a valid point. I think. I don't know. I'll digest this, and I might yell at you next Wednesday when I feel tricked. Who knows? But for now, I'm with you. For now,
All
I'm
good.
back. I'm back in the cult of Joel. So,
Drink the
all right,
clear Kool-Aid.
let's end on this, Joel. ChatGPT, very weird.
Mm.
AI. This is not like a baseball related topic. So if you are just here for the baseball BS, you can tune out now. Leave a like on your way by. ChatGPT, I think is so cool. I know you're like annoyed by it as a screenwriter yourself. It's for obvious reasons a threat to your industry. Although I think as it stands right now, it's the potential of it is a bigger threat than what it actually is. But who knows
Yeah.
how far away it's gonna be. As a
Feels like
stand-up comedian, Scott and I are both worried of like just hacks with good energy going on and being like, write me a joke about dog food and my kid's homework, and it combines it, and all of a sudden that's a really funny joke, and they're just performing stuff from ChatGPT. So I'm also threatened by this. Okay. It's very cool. I know you sent me the link for Mid Journey for images, right?
mhm.
Man, have I had a lot of fun with that and playing with the different prompts and trying to see how much. Oh, that's a whole skill set to itself. Just being able to like, uh,
Speak to the AI.
when I was okay, so when I was a grade schooler, we had a computer lab. That was a thing, right? Because you didn't have your own computer, you didn't have your own iPad at the desk. You had a room with computers and like dot matrix printers and stuff. And I remember so clearly my teacher in grade 5 explaining to us the concept of garbage in, garbage out,
Mm,
right? Like with a computer, like a computer is just a tool. And whatever, like if you put bad directions into it, it's going to give you bad directions back, right? Kind of same thing with a calculator or anything. And I feel like that is, oh man, is it ever exaggerated to the nth degree with where AI is right now?
mhm.
Like garbage in, garbage out. But man, if you can fine hone that skill set to throw in like a good prompt or, use the keywords that make a difference, right? And there's some cool YouTube videos trying to like educate people, but everybody's kind of like making it up as they go. So it's kind of an interesting frontier of let's call it art, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that term loosely.
yeah, very loosely.
I sent you a new one that I just found. 11 Labs. So this is a voice AI.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so that's the clips that I sent you this morning, asking for the angles you wanted to take on the Bo Bichette news. So there's an app called, I think it's called Voice AI on the iPhone. I signed up for it. Open beta doesn't start until the end of the month. But from what I've seen, the concept of this is you upload a you upload a like 10-second clip of someone talking, right? You, me, Scott Belford, Danny DeVito, whoever the case may be. Like a 10-second clip of them just talking that you've pulled from a podcast or a scene from a movie or whatever. You wait like 10 seconds and now you have your own like voice, like an automated voice. So now you type in your text and it's Danny DeVito saying whatever you want to say. So, and it's so impressive. Like the clips that I've seen on YouTube from people who have done this, it is like pretty wild what you're able to get, Joe Biden or Donald Trump or who like Dan, whatever to just say stuff, right? Just the oh man, I don't think we're a ways away from okay. I want to be careful with how I say this. I think there is I don't want to put a timetable on it, but a path to a future in which rather than me having Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and all these apps, I just have a AI bot and I can go make me a buddy cop movie with Kevin Hart and Danny DeVito and make it a crime related to illegal baseball bats. And then I wait like 15 minutes, I go cook lunch, and when I come back, there's a 90-minute film where ChatGPT has written the full script, and then these like
I
11 Labs or these voice apps have
yeah.
got like everybody's cast, and it's literally Kevin Hart's voice, anyways, and Danny DeVito's voice, and they're voicing the script, and then there's also like a visual. Again, I don't know how far away we are from like these deep fakes and what Mid Journey is able to do on a like image basis and the speed at which it's able to do it is mind blowing. But it's probably going to be a while before it can also do like complex videos and scenes to go along with it. But am I crazy to think that that's a far off reality at some point? Is that
Some
possible?
some people are already combining the AIs to do exactly what you're saying. So there is a still image animator AI that will take a still image, animate it. There's the voice one that you said. There's an editor. There's a obviously Mid Journey, but like ChatGPT for your text and your writing. I've seen people on TikTok literally combine them all, create a movie like 2 3 minutes long, characters speaking to you off AI driven script.
This is
It's edited by
nuts.
AI, and it's like the exponential curve of technology. It's a technological growth curve is exponential. We're getting to the point where it's not going like we were here for a while.
Yeah.
Now we're in this part, right?
Yeah.
The growth
The
curve has gotten to the
asymptote
part where
for
it's
sure.
directly upwards, right?
It's
And
insane.
the changes that are happening at this point and that will happen monthly from this point on are terrifying, especially for creatives or anybody who can see that their vocation is going to be taken over by somebody who doesn't need any money to do it
Well,
and can
look at
work
BuzzFeed.
24/7.
I don't know
Yeah,
if you saw what happened with BuzzFeed, right? They do those like listicle articles, like, top 10 ways to slim down for this summer or whatever, right? And they just laid off like 25,000 writers. And we're like, no, we're just going to do ChatGPT to do this instead. Like, it's
there's going to
wild.
be you know how you're like you go to the grocers and there's like a stamp of like food approval. This has been stamped as a healthy
Okay.
you're going to get like companies that are like AI exclusive or AI like no AI at all, right? Like we
Right.
are a
It'll
no
be the
AI
new
company.
non GMO,
Yeah, right.
right?
And it'll
These are
be
the
a stamp
organic
of
bananas. This is the
we hire
non AI.
humans only, right?
Oh,
And
I like
it's
that.
a split between human only companies that we want human beings to make money and economy is made for them, and companies that don't care and trying to make a split down, and those companies will fall apart because the other ones will be a million times more efficient, and people
Yeah,
always choose efficiency.
it's true.
So
It's true. It'll be weird though. Like you said, it'll be weird when we get to a point where Danny DeVito is doing a an advertisement for a movie, and he's like, "I'm Danny DeVito, and I actually acted in this movie," and that'll just be the pitch, right? But then that will also probably, even if he did act in the movie, him doing that promo is probably AI generated. We're not going
yeah,
to pay him
we're
his
gonna
one
get
day to show up and film the promo, so we'll just get AI to say, "Yeah, this is really me." The
we're going
irony.
to watch you're going to go watch Indiana Jones probably this year, right? You're going to see the new Indiana Jones
Of
movie,
course, of course.
right? You're looking at a good chunk of that movie being a computer generated Harrison Ford in the
Yeah.
past, right? Like a young Harrison Ford is going to be running around. So
Right.
we're going to
Right.
get to the point where actors don't die. They
Hmm.
just are recreated in an AI form where their voice is identical, their mannerisms are perfectly matched. And
Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, even without the advancements in AI at the consumer level, like look at Princess Leia there a couple
yeah,
of years
yeah,
ago, right, where she died in Carrie Fisher, right?
yeah. And they kept her
Uh,
going.
and they kept her going, because she passed in the middle of filming. They were still able to create scenes that she was zero part of, but fill it in.
Create scenes.
You know what I mean? Paul Walker too in the Fast and the
Hmm.
Furious franchise there, right? They were able to. I think it was his brother that
Yeah,
was the stand-in, and then they face mapped his face and stuff. Um, it's gonna be a weird future. Do you think there's any sort of legislative or like
hmm.
union coalitions that can come in to prevent some of this? Because like what copyright liabilities would there be to being like to prevent me from, I know you and I have talked about and are working on a baseball comedy whatever, but for us to just like what would be stopping us at this point from being like, okay, we've got a script, it's all punched up, now let's cast Danny DeVito as the bat catcher and just get like these AI bots to create scenes and use his voice, and he's just like, and every let's just film the movie, like what's preventing us from doing that and then not paying
That's
Danny DeVito? Like
to
how does
me.
that get prevented?
See, like some people are going to do it. I don't think that the art form truly rises through. I think there's something to be said about art through adversity, struggling to get your art made,
Hmm.
like the
I
pain of the
agree.
process.
The restrictions of George Lucas on the early Star Wars films, or
Jaws as well, right?
yeah,
Spielberg not getting the shark to work, right?
right.
The movie's better because the shark didn't work and you had to hide it, like the adversity that comes through the process of art. And I feel like you're going to see a lot of people.
Jurassic Park. That was the other one I was thinking of. Spielberg. Sorry.
Yeah, Jurassic Park there's a good line in Jurassic Park where Jeff Goldblum says to the guys who designed the dinosaurs, "You stood on the backs of brilliant people, but you never dealt with the struggles, and you didn't you did what you did, but you didn't ask if you should do it, right?" And that's kind of this situation of like you're you're sitting there creating an AI app that is literally going to make you know a billion people irrelevant for the rest of time. it's
Yeah.
it's a wild thing, but at the same time I feel like true artists who collaborate, and that adversity that they go through to create something is as important as the creation itself. You find so much about yourself, you find so much about the project that you're working on, especially when it comes to writing and creating characters. I don't feel like Chat GPT knows what it's like to live a human life and to have a girlfriend leave you or a loved one to die, and for you to have those emotional connections are still a long ways away. For it to live those things out and understand the meaning behind all of that. So I feel like we still have the edge when it comes to that. And yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of AI art that just doesn't have any heart to it because it's so
Well put.
easily acquired. And I still feel like the cream will rise to the top in most situations. But for a positive element, the way I see it is like everything that you said. Say you have a movie idea, right?
Yeah.
Movie producers don't want to read the script. They never have. They never want to sit down for the
Right.
amount of time that it takes to get through 120 pages. But now what you can do is you can take your script, get the greatest actors in the world, voice it over, create a pitch that is now
Let's
more movie
storybook
than
it
it
for a
is.
presentation.
Yeah. And then
Gotcha.
you show that and you go, that'd be a great movie.
This
Let's
is
go
the
make that movie.
potential. Imagine Danny DeVito in this role, right?
Like you
Look how
said,
fun
it's
this could be. Yeah.
computer is a tool, bad in, bad out,
Mhm.
right? But you can use these types of things to improve filmmaking, to get your vision in front of producers and other people to, as opposed to them having to close their eyes and imagine what you imagine. Now you
Right.
can give them the imagery, you can give them the sound, you can give them the tone.
Mhm.
So that might be a tool for just the idea of pitching and getting ideas out there.
Well, that's an optimistic way to look at it, and I like that angle. I look at what websites like YouTube have done for, well, I mean, for me ultimately, but also in a much more exaggerated scale. Independent artists, musicians, uh, TikTok as well. Just the way technology has allowed a little bit of the barrier to entry, right? Whether that is through gatekeepers who are physical people, or whether it's just through the cost, um, right? With computer software being what it is, you can edit your own sound and your own music and be your own producer and whatever. So I like the optimism there that, maybe instead of this just being the downfall of movies and entertainment, maybe this is the movie industry's YouTube circa 2008, right? Where this is the opportunity for, a artist with a vision but no access, living in rural Manitoba or whatever, who has an internet connection. I don't know how. They're in Manitoba. I don't know how that happened. Maybe that was a bad example. Let's pick
Hamster
a
on a spinning wheel to get that far.
yeah. Um, but they sorry, shots at Manitoba. Um, but maybe there's an opportunity there for someone to, create art, have a vision for, whether it's a very compelling story or entertaining or hilarious or thought out, or a complex story about time travel that I might be super interested in because I love time travel movies. And if you have any good ones, let me know.
I do.
Um, I've probably seen them all, but I'm curious about your list, and we'll talk that
Oh,
after.
I wrote one.
Why haven't I seen it yet?
It's not out
Well, you
yet.
need to get on some AI service and
Yeah,
storyboard it for me, okay?
that's
I
right.
I want Danny DeVito in the lead role.
Done.
Okay, um,
It's
that's
called The
my
World
only
of Danny's,
request.
and everybody's Danny.
Oh my god, it's amazing. Um, okay, I'm way off the rails here, which is probably a good time for us to wrap it up. But I like that idea that there is an opportunity here to get your art out, or at least present it
I've
to
had
people who then can fund it to be produced in a proper way. And like you said, it's sometimes maybe you've got a great storytelling brain, but not a great presentation brain, right? Or you don't have the connections or whatever, and you can't. I just think there's a lot of people who, I mean, kudos to you being a big Hollywood producer living in Edmonton.
the
Uh,
biggest.
that's a testament to your enthusiasm for the art and your drive as an artist. But a lot of people, even up until the last handful of years, it was like, if you want to be a writer or an actor or whatever, it's like sell everything you got, move to LA, and then hope beyond hope that you win the lottery, right? And just think
Yeah,
of all the people who are like, maybe could have been great actors or great special effects people or great writers, who are just like, yeah, but I can't move to LA. And now that maybe they don't have to. So I think that's some positivity there. Um, how did you make your how did you make it as a screenwriter from Edmonton? Can you just tell me that story? Is that a
yeah.
thing? I'm very
I
interested. We've never talked about this before. It's the
I
mystery
made
of Joel.
I made a short film in 2008, in 24 hours. It was a 24-hour. Well, it was a month-long competition for Sundance. Okay,
Okay.
we found out about it with like 36 hours to go. Right, so
Nice.
a bunch of my friends ran out in the middle of December, and we shot, we pretty much took risky business and turned it into a 5-minute movie. We just ripped it off.
Why does your origin story, of course, include Tom Cruise?
It has
Why
to, right?
why
That's
if I had to guess, anything. Of course, it's Tom Cruise. Okay, my origin story would involve Danny DeVito, but I digress. Let's
We
okay.
we can do another copy of Twins, I guess, with Tom Cruise and Danny
Oh,
DeVito.
now we're
Ooh.
talking. Hey, okay. Let's
So
okay.
yeah,
So Sundance, risky
yeah,
business.
I made this short film. It went to Sundance in 2008. This is actually a nice story. It played there. It was a runner up in a short film festival competition. It was only eligible for Americans though. Canadians couldn't submit. So what we did was we sent it to some friends of ours in Boston, who then submitted from Boston.
Nice.
And we pretended like we were from Boston in the movie. So we were talking like, hey, don't worry about it. And we just got these accents. And we're all, and I, weirdly enough, I'll send it to you. I'm the
I
main
can't wait.
character.
Okay.
And so it plays at Sundance as because it's 5 minutes, it's like a trailer for the show, the actual movie that they were going to play that night. And the movie that they played was something called Angels in Manhattan, which was a story about AIDS in New York, and it had Meryl Streep in it and
Okay.
Al Pacino in it, and they were there. They were there watching their movie be premiered, and our little short film from Edmonton started the whole night. And then when it was all said and done, Meryl Streep walks up to me and says, "I know how cold Boston is in the winter." And
She fell for it.
I go, "Oh, we're not from. I'm not from Boston." And I start talking the way that I talk, and she goes, "Oh," and I'm like, "Wait, did I just act to Meryl Streep? Did you just believe my acting?"
I love it.
And so like that's 2008. That still has to be the highlight of like anything that I've like. Don't get me wrong, I've got stuff going. I got my series with Netflix. I've I've got stuff in the pipeline, but for a I'm pretty sure that was the galvanizing moment that made me do it. I wasn't gonna leave it at that point.
That's
I,
very
I
cool.
convinced I convinced Meryl Streep that I was from somewhere else. So that's that's
I'm
pretty much the
impressed.
inception moment.
I'm impressed. It's funny because do you watch The Last of Us?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
great show.
So I don't want any spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen it. Um, there was some fervor on the Twitter sphere about this I think it was episode 3 where they were like 20 miles west of Boston or
Mm.
whatever. But then it was like the mountains of Canmore is where it was filmed. And then there was all this like
Shocking.
outrage from people who are like, I'm from Boston. And this scene like breaks my heart right now because that is not what it looks like here. And you were the original fake Boston,
Yes,
2008. So
absolutely.
there you go.
Turned Edmonton into fake Boston. Yeah. I'll send it to you.
All right, I can't wait. I'm gonna watch it. Very cool. Well, thanks for getting off the rails and talking some non-baseball stuff with me, Joel. And for
Anytime.
anybody who listened, I don't know how many did. Uh, drop a comment or send a DM or whatever, and let us know if you liked us going off the rails and getting a little personal with stuff. So, okay, we'll wrap there. Congratulations to Bo Bichette on his job security. Let's call it.
Mhm.
Okay, and
His raise.
his raise, yeah. And congratulations to the Blue Jays for avoiding 3 years of ugly arguments, at least. Okay, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you again next Wednesday, Joel. And for everybody else, don't forget, hop on the Patreon if you haven't, and get your votes in for this month's trivia night. I know Joel's voting for Moneyball as many times as he can. So,
Mhm.
okay, we'll catch you later, Joel. I appreciate you. Have a great night.